One of the things that you're going to learn when you become a permanent deep learner, because this is the goal here, becoming a deep learner and becoming a permanent deep learner. When this happens, there's going to be so much power. There's going to be so much power that's going to come to you from within. Because as we keep saying, as I keep saying, the subconscious side of the brain is going to start believing in you. It's going to start to action ideas. It's going to start to do things. There's going to be less procrastination. There's going to be more action. Because you know what? You're going to take risks. We want to take risks as a deep learner. Because by taking risks, we're not afraid to fail. We're not afraid to make mistakes. In fact, deep learners encourage failure and encourage mistakes. The worst thing is not actually following through with that idea, with that interest, with whatever our brain, whatever our mind wants to do. Because as deep learners, remember, we are solving problems. So I was looking at these videos coming through the other day. My daughter was watching something, and so you get these advertising videos, and there's a lot of videos out there that say to you, oh, follow my instructions and you'll follow a multi-million-dollar selling plan, or follow this and you'll become a millionaire, or you'll be getting 7 figures. Now, while some of those ideas might be good and some of them are okay, no one is out there. No one is out there to do it for you. If anyone's telling you they've got the secret formula, they don't. It's bullshit. Okay? No one's doing it for you. You have to do it for you, and you have to fall into that swimming pool, or you have to fall into that experience, or whatever that risk you're going to take, whatever that idea is, you have to fall into it. And number one, you have to believe in it. Because let's assume you do the deep learning exercises and the deep learning practices, and through my course I go through these practices, and I actually show you me doing these practices. And with these practices, you only have to master one of them. If you master one deep learning practices, your life's going to change, and it's going to go a long way in changing your subconscious, the subconscious side of your brain, which controls everything. It controls the conscious sides, because it's telling your conscious side through past experience, and through past information, and through every conversation you've ever had, it's telling your conscious side what you can and cannot do. Okay? And if there's a lot of fear in the subconscious, if there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hate, revenge, all this stuff in your subconscious, there's not much the conscious side of the brain can do. We have to support the conscious side of the brain by helping grow the subconscious. And the way we change the subconscious side is through actions. It's through the experience. It's through failing. It's through feelings. It's through making mistakes. It's taking risks, having fun, living that life of adventure. Because when humans are like that, we're at our best. There's nothing that can beat us. The AI cannot compete against a human, a deep learning human who is always experiencing an action and feeling the emotion and feeling the experience, because it's those feelings that we get that will change the subconscious mind. Now, I get it. There's so much out there that's like, positive thinking, and think positively and think positively and think positively, which is great. But if that does not, if thinking positive and talking positively and telling yourself all these positive things, that honestly, if it's not backed up by feelings and emotions, which is backed up through experience and action, not much is going to change. And all these courses out there that promise you the world, less than 1% of them succeed, because no one's out there to do it for you. Anyone that's telling you there's an easy pathway, they're just trying to sell you something. It's not going to happen, okay? By becoming a deep learner, by converting your brain from a surface learner to a deep learning brain model, that's what we're doing. By converting our brain from a surface learning brain model to a deep learning brain model, we're upgrading our brain model. We're not using the old software that we had 20 years ago. We're using a new software in our model, which is our brain model, which is the most important tool we have, our brain, because it controls everything. And that's what this is all about. And that's why I'm here, because I'm practicing these tasks, I'm doing these tasks daily. I feel the experience. I make mistakes, I fail, I go through that motion, and if I'm not making mistakes and if I'm not failing, I'm not taking enough risks. This is my journey. I'm not here claiming I'm some kind of master. I'm not here claiming that I'm some kind of genius. I'm claiming that I'm striving to be that. I'm striving to become that, and I'm doing these practices, and this is my medicine. This is my recipe of what I think has changed my life. And I think this journey for me started about 5 years ago, and it was forced upon me because I felt my life was doing this. It was plateauing out, and I don't believe there was going to be a lot of change between my life 5 years ago and to the day I die, because not much was going to change as a surface learner. And it took me AI. It took me the journey of AI. It took me the work of AI to realise that if I hadn't changed, my life was just going to be exactly the same to the day I die. And this is where I gained all this other knowledge, and this is where I gained all this deep learning knowledge, and this is why I'm here now talking to you. So, one of the things that happens to a lot of us, and as a deep learner, what's going to happen? You're going to get a lot of ideas. Every single one of you has a great idea, has many great ideas. If you sit down, if you don't wake up in fear, if you don't wake up with the news, if you don't wake up with a negative mindset, okay, your brain then starts to think creatively. It starts to think in terms of goals, it starts to think in terms of purposes and passions. Things that you love come to you because your brain is converting to a more of a growth mindset type of a brain. You're not self-labeling yourself. You're not in this toxic environment where it's always negative and it's always the same conversations. What happens a lot of times is this, okay? Everyone has a great idea, or everyone has imagination. Imagination and wonder is probably one of the best deep learning tools and one of the best things you can do for your brain. Because when you imagine, what happens is you're getting all these ideas. And all these ideas come. If you just close yourself from the whole world and just imagine the life you've always wanted. Just imagine the person you've always wanted to be. Just go back to that 4-year-old or 5-year-olds where you had all these dreams, you had all these imaginations, you had all these stories, all these fairy tale stories, all this stuff that came to your mind. Now, Just imagine that. And what happens is, everyone has ideas. And if you start to spend 5 minutes just writing some of these ideas, all of a sudden you'll come up with some amazing ideas, okay? But what happens is, what happens to ideas for most people? Someone comes up with an idea. I had a friend of mine, and for the last 3 years, he's been talking to me about this great idea. Now, I don't want to mention it here because it's his idea. And it's a great idea to solve problems for a lot of people. And I think if he pursues this idea, I think he's going to make a lot of money. Now, he's been talking about this idea for 3 years. And every time I see him, he talks about this idea. And every time I see him, I say, what's going on with this idea? What are you doing about it? And it's always some kind of excuse. I spoke to this person and doesn't think it's a good idea. And okay. And then he talks about the idea again. And then I spoke to that person and he reckons I'll fail. And I said another time, and he says, well, Ross, it's a great idea, but I think other people have probably done it. It's always people around you that kill that idea, and it's always the fear of failure. And the reason why I'm telling you that story is because I'm sure you've met people that come up with great ideas and they're talking to you about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this, and then 3 years later, or 4 years later, or 5 years later, they haven't done anything because it's all these distractions all around the world telling them why they can't do it. Okay? And so what happens is, this idea goes nowhere. It stops. It just remains in your head. And the problem with that is, when you have these ideas, these great ideas, and they go nowhere because of the fear, because of the toxic environment. And when I say toxic environment, even the people that love us, they don't want us to take risks because they don't want us to get hurt. They don't want us to fall over, and fair enough, but sometimes we do need to take those risks so we can fall over, so we can go through the experience, so then we can learn from that and try something else or try something different. Because what happens is, the idea that you may have, you don't know what may manufacture from that idea. Something else may come out of that idea. Now, I never imagined that I'd be doing deep learning courses. Never. It was all behind AI. It was all behind me growing in the AI industry, having to learn in the AI industry if I was going to survive in the AI industry. And through all that, and through all the learning and experimenting and failures and mistakes, I sort of came to this idea in terms of the deep learning machine, in terms of teaching people how to become deep learners. Because if I went through this experience, I think most people may be going through a similar experience. So it's not hard to come up with ideas. What is hard is to make decisions. And what happens is people sit an idea, they have the ideas, they have many great ideas, but even the not so great ideas, just those not so great ideas just sit in your mind and they do nothing. It's like you're wasting them. And what happens is you're finding a million reasons why you shouldn't do it, because, hey, you've never really succeeded at anything. You're thinking in your head, and the subconscious mind is telling you, hey, you know what? You're going to end up losing. You're going to probably lose some money. You're probably going to spend a lot of time doing it. You're not going to be able to maybe watch the football on the Saturday, whatever you may need to sacrifice for a small period of time. That idea never eventuates. But I'll tell you what will happen. And I recently visited a friend of mine who was dying. He's passed away since, and I think it was 2 or 3 days before he died. I visited his bedside, And what was interesting when we had this chat, and he was always a happy guy. He was always a happy person. But when he was sitting there, he was talking about the things that he should have done. He was talking about the stuff that he knew he could do, and for small, silly reasons he didn't do. For unexplained reasons. Because what happens, our subconscious mind over the years creates a habit of why we shouldn't do something. The fear of not doing it. Just take that idea and do nothing with it, and just let's go on to social media for 3 hours a day and that's fine. But when you're dying and you're in the deathbed, and you know you're capable of much, much more, you know you had the gift, you had the superpower within you to do more. It was interesting having that conversation because if you think about it, and I have recently been close to death myself. I almost died 6 months ago through some condition. So I know that feeling of being close to death, that whatever risks you die, whatever risks or whatever fears you may have, that falls away in the face of death. So when you get an idea, you may think you're taking a risk. Taking a risk is a good thing and it's part of becoming a deep learner, but you've got to go through that journey. You've got to follow through. And what happens is, we have the idea and then we don't really make a decision. Well, technically we do make a decision. We make a decision not to pursue our idea. And part two. So when you have an idea, most people stop there. The second part of this is to actually make the decision to do something about that idea. And most people stop there. Now you may make a decision to watch a video. You may make a decision to read a book, to help yourself, to research, and all that, which is fantastic. So a lot of people stop at the idea, and a lot of people come to the decision process and they say, okay, I'm going to research this, I'm going to review it, I'm going to do this online course that will improve my skills. Guess what happens for most people? It stops there. It stops there. So they've come up with the idea, they've made a decision to investigate, explore, maybe even talk to some people, but then it doesn't go any further. Because again, we're thinking too much. We're our subconscious side, and this is why I keep talking about the subconscious side of the brain, is conflicted. It's telling us, well, do you really want to do this? Okay, but this is really important because our subconscious mind, I keep talking about our subconscious mind, is telling us something different. Do you really want to do this? Is this something that you really want to do? Okay, and it's because of the years, and think of it's been coded. We're trying to recode the subconscious brain, and deep learning practices will go a long way to do this, because the one way you can decode the subconscious brain is 3, action. Now, you've got the idea, you use imagination and wonder and creativity, and sometimes just to sit for 10 minutes and just think and allow the brain to just flow. And again, sometimes the best thing is when you've got a problem. You know what the worst thing happens? You know what this worst happens? People complain. People are always complaining about something. Everything. You know, you meet the one person that's complaining all the time, but you know what? The complaint just remains there. He doesn't do anything about it, or she doesn't do anything about it. It's just always a problem. Everything's always. But you know what you could do? This is what you could do. If you're always complaining, if you're always seeing negativity, and if you can get that problem and think about it. Use it as an imagination to think how you would solve that problem. Because if you're seeing a problem out there, how would you solve that problem? And that becomes an idea. And then all of a sudden, you're using an emotion of some kind of problem that you see in your life to convert it into an imagination, an idea. Could be 5 ideas from that, and from that you make a decision. And the decision has to be that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this by this particular date. And then you action. This is the big one. You have to action the idea. But to action the idea, you have to make a decision. So the brain has got the idea, could be a problem that you personally want to solve. For me, my problem was that my knowledge in AI 5 years ago was not progressing, and I was not going to survive the AI industry. And I was in the AI industry, but I wasn't going to survive it because my knowledge in AI was just not growing, okay? And I knew it, and I could feel it, and I was trying every method to try and change that. And I would walk into meetings and I would be so nervous because I knew my knowledge was not up to these Silicon Valley software engineers, and I knew they knew that I did not. So I had a problem, and I used a lot of imagination to think of ideas on how to solve that problem, and then I made a decision. I made decisions to change the way I learn, and that's how I eventually found deep learning methods, and that's how I found deep learning research and deep learning teachers that showed me practices which surprisingly were fun, were adventurous, and it was all about taking action to solve the problem. And then my life became about actions, and to solve problems. And you know what the beauty about this is? I didn't care about failure or mistakes. In fact, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. It's part of my journey. Failure and mistakes are going to be part of your actions. And failure and mistakes are going to be part of your decisions. And even failure and mistakes are going to be part of your ideas. Because you're going through this journey, you have to make failure and mistakes. Because if you're not failing, if you're not making failure and mistakes, guess what? You're not taking risks. Because deep learning is about taking risks, actioning the idea, and you have to make the decision. You have to make the decision and follow through. Because what happens is to most people, and even a lot of these online courses that you see out there, what happens is people make the idea, they have an idea, they look at an online class, oh yeah, you'll be making 7 figures in 60 days, right? They make a decision to do it. They even action a lot of these stuff, but then what happens is they fall off. They fall off because the experience is not what they expected. But this is the thing. When you have an idea, and say that idea is to solve a problem, as a deep learner, once you become a permanent deep learner, and this is the key, as a surface learner, what happens is We try one thing, we fail. Oh, this is not for me. I'm gone, done. I'm back to here. No, I'm just going to have ideas, and it stops here. Okay? Ideas will come and flow in, but that's it. We won't even make decisions or anything. As a permanent deep learner, it doesn't matter what course you do after that. It doesn't matter how many books you read, because as a deep learner, your life's going to change. Because as a deep learner, when you get an idea, you make decisions to pursue that idea. You action that idea so you can get the experience. From that experience, this keeps flowing around. Because you get a new experience. You actually get a new experience. I don't get the experience. I get the experience for myself, but you get a brand new experience. And the good thing is, you're most likely going to make mistakes and fail. And if you don't make mistakes, if you don't have an experience where you feel like you're not failing or you're not risking failure mistakes and you're not trying hard enough and you're not a deep learner, if you're just going to play it safe, if you're just going to wait, well, you know what, I'll wait to get those skills first, I'll wait to get that knowledge. No, you've got to jump in straight away. And even if you don't have those skills, there's another problem for you to solve. Find a way to do it, but you have to go through this experience. You have to go through this process, okay? And you do this process as a deep learner. Now, going back to the online course, if you're not a deep learner, what happens a lot of people, they feel, people jump onto a lot of these online courses that is promising you the world. And what happens is, 6 months down the track, not much has changed for 95%, 96% of people that do these courses. And the main reason is, in my opinion, is most people are going into these courses as surface learners. So you're going into a course as a surface learner. Someone has a learning brain model of the past. If you go into these courses as a deep learner and then becoming a permanent deep learner, it doesn't matter what course you do after that, you will then go through this process in your life. You'll get the idea, you'll make the decision, you'll action it, you'll experience it, you'll probably evaluate afterwards whether you fail or pass. You most likely will make mistakes, and then you'll go through this thing again and again and again, and eventually what happens is your life will become about solving problems that are meaningful and purposeful to you. And doing that in a way that where you're growing, you're being creative, you're taking risks, you're having a lot of fun, and then your life becomes one full adventure. And when you go through this, what happens is your subconscious side of the brain is going to start believing in you. It's going to start following you. So instead of you saying to yourself every day, I'm the best, I'm great, I'm creative, all this, your actual subconscious, because of the actions, because of the way we feel about risk taking and the way we feel about mistakes, is going to change. And it's because you're bringing, when you action something and you experience something, you're bringing in the emotions and the feelings into it. And that's powerful. You're bringing in all your senses into your subconscious, and then your subconscious starts to then change, and it starts to change its formulas, it starts to change its things. And then when you have those great ideas, when you do start, because what happens is, once you start to experience new ideas are going to come, new problems are going to come, which means it's fantastic, which means it gives you a better ability to imagine and wonder, which means you get more ideas. And there's practices, there's deep learning practices to use problems, to create imagination, to convert them into ideas. There's practical deep learning practices to do that, and I will show you in follow-up videos. But this process of ideas, making decisions, taking the actions and experience is the ultimate process to change the subconscious side of your brain. And now, There's other experiments, there's other automated processes that I use before I go to sleep, which I'll outline in another video. So before I go to sleep, I spend about 10 minutes automating a step-by-step process so that when my brain is sleeping, the subconscious side of the brain is operating in a certain way that has desire, and a certain way that it's got a burning desire to fulfill its purpose, that's sleeping with love and creativity. And if you're solving a problem, if you're coming to those problems with those type of emotion, with passion, then what happens is, with love, what happens is the subconscious mind is working. And then what happens is, when you wake up in the morning, you spend another 10 minutes. So I spend 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. But at night, what happens is I spend 10 minutes. So simple, I'll do it in a further video. But you spend 10 minutes, it's so easy, doing some fun exercises, 3 tasks, and 3 not to do tasks. So 3 don't do tasks. And then you have practice when you get up in the morning, so the night when you are going to sleep, the way you're thinking is the way the subconscious brain is going to work. So if you go to bed thinking negative thoughts, thinking angry thoughts, thinking revenge and envy thoughts, thinking guilt thoughts, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to wake up pretty upset. And I know this because I've experienced this. I've done this and I've experienced it. So I know when I'm angry at someone, or I want to get revenge on someone, or I'm envious of someone, or I feel guilt, I wake up with anxiety. But when you wake up, when you go to sleep, you have an automated process. So we're going to automate the process. 10 minutes before we go to sleep, we automate the process. We change our subconscious with feelings of emotion, of love, of desire, of faith, of hope, of passion, of romance. When we go to bed with that, we wake up with a different outlook, with different feelings, and then we keep it that way by automating 10 minutes, a different process in the morning, which then keeps the subconscious mind consistent. And the whole purpose of all this, it's not so much the practices are easy, and all these practices and all these things here, they're easy to do. There's nothing hard about it. It's not like boring old traditional learning where we have to learn concepts and it's boring. What we do as deep learners excites us because we're doing things that is personal to us. And so when we're solving a problem that's personal and individual and meaningful to us, eventually what will happen is you will be going through this experience. You will be going through this experience. You then will become the expert in what is working, whether we change the idea, whether we change imaginations, because new experiences are going to bring new problems. You're going to take new risks. And from being here, you're going to end up somewhere else. And sometimes you see an aeroplane, it takes off and lands up in a destination. But you tilt it a little bit more, goes off, ends up somewhere different. And the purpose is this. The purpose is this. And I say this to myself. I don't know where I'm going to end up. When I die, I die. But I don't know where and how I'm going to be. But I know one thing. I hope in my journey that I'm still deep learning, I'm problem solving. I become a different person. I don't know what kind of person, but hopefully I'm growing, developing, living in wonder and imagination, having a subconscious that's full of love, desire, hope, faith, passion. All that stuff is filled up in my brain because I know if I can consistently, this is the key, if I can consistently keep my brain there, my life is unlimited. And that's so I know if I can keep myself in that consistent mode, if I can keep the subconscious in the systematic, full of emotions of love and hope and faith and passion and romance and all this stuff. If your brain is full of that, then I know you're going to end up somewhere which is going to be in a great place. And I hope that, you realise that this is not just about deep learning for the sake of learning. This is about your destiny. This is about your dreams. This is about your meeting your best self. This is about what you could possibly do. Because if you have an idea, all of a sudden, when you go through this process, you may end up with another 10 different ideas. And then all of a sudden you have more ideas. And what happens is you start meeting people with ideas that are similar to yours, and then you start mingling with like-minded people. And then you start having those like-minded discussions. And then all of a sudden the toxic negativity, those toxic negativity thoughts and those toxic negative people around you that don't want you to go from the idea to the decision, that stop you from, that prevent you from going there, they start to go. Because every single person, and you too, have an adventure. Use that superpower. You can use a superpower. It's not about how hard you work, it's the strategy of how you do it. And this is the strategy. And because I hope, for me, and I'm talking about me now, at the end of my journey, when I'm at the end of my road, and I'm facing death, and it depending on what your belief is. But for me, and I've grown up in a Greek Orthodox family, I hope that I could say to myself and to my God that I used everything that you gave me. And I did it with love, I did it with passion, I did it with imagination, I did it with faith and hope. And for me, that's the journey. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know this is the strategy. And I hope you follow me, because now with AI, the world needs people to go through this process, to become deep learners. And I say this even with my course, that you can come and do my course and you can do these practices. And I say to you, master one of them and your life will change. And you'll go through a destiny, an adventure, a life where you won't know where you're going to end up, but you're going to end up in a position that's where growth and imagination and love and hope and faith live. Pursuing a burning desire to solve a problem. But this is the thing, okay? When you're on this destination, when you're on this pathway, following this, you want to be able to live the life that you deserve. And you can. And there's nothing that can stop you from getting there. And if you do my course and you do successfully master one of these practices in there, and your life's going to change. But if you're doing the course, and I can say this to you now, because I've seen students of mine, they do the practices, they do the course, they master one of the practice, their life changes. But if you're still living with a toxic environment where it's all negative, it's all hatred, it's all anger, it doesn't matter how well my teaching is, it doesn't matter how good my deep learning practices are, and they will change you, but to get the maximum effect, we need the subconscious side of the brain to change its emotions, to change its feelings into the positive mode. because they're from negative mind. And it's like this, like any course that you do. And it's, if you're going into it as a surface learner and with a negative mode, because our subconscious brain is saying, well, you know, I'll do this course to make me feel good for a couple of weeks or maybe a month, but not much is going to change. Now, I'm not in this game so you can change and feel good about yourself for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, for a month. I'm about a lifetime of change. I'm about a lifetime of change for you. I don't want you as a student, if you're not committed, not just to doing the deep learning practices and mastering one, and it's easy, but also working to change the subconscious, because I know by changing the subconscious side of the brain, using deep learning, and with deep learning, it's unlimited to what you can do. And your life is going to be better. And not only that, the people around you will be better, and you'll become a leader, and the world needs more deep learners. And who knows, you know, you bring more deep learners around the table, you speak to more deep learners. I mean, for me, the thrill is I'm meeting more people, I've got more students, and we're talking every day, we're fulfilling each other's needs. I'm talking about deep learning, they're talking about their experiences. And this is the journey, and it's a journey for all of us, so we're all on this journey. But the key is this: when you become a deep learner, when you become a permanent deep learner, you are leading your life. And together as a team, we can fulfill bigger problems and fulfill bigger issues, and who knows, save the world and change the world and maybe save humanity. So anyway, thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you soon.